Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Indie Black Chamber of Commerce podcast titled Impact. And I guess we may have to work on that name maybe. But today we're joined with an amazing guest speaker.
I didn't say we needed to work on the name, but why would you start it off that way? Why would you do that?
No, it's fine. It's fine. 100%. So nonetheless, we're here with an amazing guest, Miss Whitley Yates. How are you doing, Whitley?
I'm wonderful. How are you? I'm excited to be on Impact, powered by the Indie Black Chamber of Commerce. As a board member, I look to support any and all endeavors that the Black Chamber is doing. So I'm excited.
All right. So there are basically three segments that we're looking at. So, of course, impact, community, and entrepreneurship. So impact, community, and entrepreneurship. For those who maybe don't know who you are or all the great things that you do, can you tell some of the listeners what you do, your background, things like that, and then we'll get into how that impacts community.
Well, my name is Whitley Yates, and I currently serve as the Director of Diversity for the Indiana Republican Party. I also own my own business called The Niche Agency. It's a PR marketing and advertising firm specializing in multicultural marketing and storytelling. And I'm also a community champion of some sorts. So I work with different organizations, agencies, and institutions to create impact specifically for marginalized people.
See, you use the word impact.
I did that on purpose.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I wanted to tie it in. I said community champion too. Are you getting? I own my own business.
I'm picking up.
I see
the entrepreneurship. I see the impact. I see the community. Yep. Awesome. Okay. So specifically, what do you do? So speaking of reference to all that you do, how does that directly impact the local community?
Ooh. Well, I really believe that as a community, our interests politically should be represented no matter who's in office. And I think a lot of times, specifically in the Black community, we only rely on those we align with to push or propel agendas. And I think that that's completely irresponsible. No matter who you are, no matter what side of the aisle that you're on, once you're in an elected official or capacity, you represent me, even if I don't agree with you or align with your political ideology. You should still be working for me in the best interest of me. And so what I attempt to do is to build bridges and relationships so that we are not on the table, but at the table when it comes to advancing policy issues that directly impact us, specifically within the Republican Party.
Awesome. So first off, I'm a huge fan of the Republican Party. I think I've been registered, 18? Yeah. So since like 2008, okay. I have been registered as Republican. But I started doing that in North Carolina. So it was a little bit more of like a history behind it for me.
Yes.
In other areas of the United States, people really frowned upon it. I'm like, man, do you guys ever read things?
You know, I think the trepidation within communities of color has come from a policy standpoint and just kind of looking. You know, when you look at the principles, they align very well with our community and our values. When you look at limited government, free enterprise and business, valuing family, all of those things are in alignment. I think a lot of times, though, when you look at the political personalities and the policies that they represented, that's where the disconnect comes. It's not that I don't identify with your principles, but it's more that you don't identify with the principles in which you proclaim to identify, and the policies that you produce are not in alignment with limited government or not in alignment with fiscal responsibility. So I think that there's been like a credibility gap, as well as lack of exposure and engagement from Republicans in communities of color. When you look at people as transactional, meaning I'm only going to engage with people that I know will vote for me because that's how I stay in power, then an entire community can be forgotten. And so I think over the years, specifically Republicans in Indiana have not engaged in communities of color because they felt like it would be futile. And so that lack of engagement, that lack of having just a pulse on what's happening has then created policies without our input. And so it's very important that we're making sure that we're discussing what's happening and how it impacts us, specifically business owners, on a grander scale, because whether or not I align with you, you should be my advocate because my tax dollars are paying your salary.
Yeah, technically you work for.
You work, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. In college, I always thought that the Republican Party had like a huge PR issue
For sure.
where the message of what they actually stand for it doesn't actually reach those who I think resonates with the most.
I would agree. And it's not marketed well. And I think so. I was having this conversation at Black Expo this past week. So we were at the Black Expo. We had a really great booth and people were just coming and engaging with us. And so when I began talking about some of the policies that have been instituted in Indiana that could be helpful to the Black community, people were shocked when I said, Governor Holcomb banned the box for state applications. So anyone who has not been a stranger to danger and has had any type of a past with the law, they don't have to mark that down on their state applications when they're applying for a job, which gives them the opportunity to go before someone and allow them to meet and build that connection first. They were like, what? When I discuss the expungement laws that we have in this state and how you're able to have your records expunged, I said that was supermajority Republican, in the state house that voted for that. When we're talking about getting licenses back, that too was supermajority Republican policy that advocated for that. And people were floored because they knew that these programs were happening on a local level, specifically in Indianapolis, through the prosecutor's office, but didn't know that the policy was predicated through Republican leadership in the state house.
Yep.
And so you have all of these policies that we are actively using and happy to use, but we don't have any connectivity in knowing that it originated here. And I think that because communities of color are not the base for the Republican Party, they don't carry that message and they don't tell that message.
You know what's interesting is I'm not really sure that communities of color are the base for any political party. It's advertised as such, but
I mean, I would say that the Black community is wholly the base for the Democratic Party, at least in Indianapolis. It's a large part.
No, yeah.
Well, and I would say nationwide.
And so when I think about like the nation, let's say Black people in general, I think the population about 10 to 12%. Mm-hmm. And it's enough to swing something, but from my perspective, 10 or 12% is not enough to get to guarantee or to start something. Like if I was, and
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But that's only who we count.
Right. I got you.
So like in Indianapolis, it's alleged that I think African Americans make up 27 to like 30% of the population. And I think we all know we make up a larger portion than that. That's
depending on who you count as.
Yes. I just think that that's who responded to the census. Like, think of all the times that we haven't responded to the census or checked our mail. Like, so, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with having duality in political ideology, making sure that we have people on all sides, like Green Party and Libertarian, so that our interests are served, on all sides.
Okay, so transitioning to entrepreneurship, there was a really good book by Bob Johnson called The $1 Million Bet. And so in his book, he talks about how if Black people, if the Black community is to elevate financially, it has to start with them being able to be active in politics. Mm-hmm. And his perspective on it is not necessarily running for office per se,
right?
But being able to fund various candidates so that when that person is on their platform, they're aligning with what's needed for the community to advance.
Correct.
And for anyone else, I definitely encourage you guys to read the book. You can get it on Amazon, whatever else, but it's a great book by Bob Johnson. Bob Johnson's the guy who founded BET for everyone else.
I think there is a lot of validity to that because modern day politics is fueled and funded by donors, and aligning with your donors' interests so that you can have that support is important. Now, a lot of people would say, well, we don't have a lot of money as a community to be able to come together, when that's not true. As a group or individualistically, you can look and say, well, I don't or you don't, but together as a whole, we definitely do, and finding ways to leverage that. And I talked about this before. If we were to, let's say, get 100 churches in the city of Indianapolis together, and those 100 churches, we said, we are all going to decide together to bank at a specific institution so that the interest of our membership is in alignment with not only politically, but personally with what the bank has to offer. And these 100 churches have banks to then compete to receive their business. And let's say you've got a Bank of America, you've got a Chase, you've got a Huntington, and they're saying, well, we're going to be able to provide, low interest loans for homes for your membership. We're going to provide business loans without fees, and then deciding which bank to use. Those 100 churches that are depositing weekly deposits of their tithes and offering into this bank, if something happens in DC, then you wouldn't necessarily use a community lobbyist. You would go to the bank and say, this piece of legislation negatively impacts our 100 plus churches with the membership of all of these different people, and we don't want this to pass. So then the banks use their lobbyists to go and advocate for the membership in which they have with the churches or the community. That's a way that we can leverage and utilize something that we're already doing to basically progress and propel and leverage our political power.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And so why is it that people aren't willing to take that economic leap of, I guess, community or collaboration with others?
I think a lot of times, it's predicated that it should be competition over collaboration. Specifically in the Black community, it is definitely valued to be competitive and to be the one. And so a lot of times people are so focused on their goals, their motivation, their mission, that it's really hard to align with other people. And I think having a more collaborative mindset where it is not about competition, but more about collaboration and coming together would benefit us in a way where we can be, in unity and in unison without being uniform. And I think that a lot of times we feel like association breeds assimilation. So if I align with Leland, then that means that I agree with every single thing that Leland says or does. And every single thing that Leland says or does is a direct representation of me, because we're so used to kind of looking at ourselves through this kind of monolithic lens, because that's how the world has looked at us.
Correct. Yeah.
Internally, intrinsically, we know we're not a monolith. We know we think differently. Get three of us at the table that identify or agree as Democrats, and all three will have different ways of leading and how we should lead and what policies should be done. Same with the other side. So we know that we're not monolithic, but we really haven't had the luxury to be able to thrive and live in our individuality, because we've always had to care for the community as a whole. So my success as a business owner, etc., can't be lauded unless the community is somehow benefiting from that success. And we're all raising or rising together.
Awesome. So would that mean that there needs to be more of a pipeline as far as high school to strengthen their local communities through business?
I would say that there needs to be an ecosystem of entrepreneurship probably before high school. And if you're paying attention now, tech has made business very accessible to young people, especially those who've been born with phones at their fingertips. And so I would say probably middle school, we need to create an ecosystem of entrepreneurship that teaches tenets and principles of building a business and sustaining a business and growing a business, so that by the time they're entering high school, that they already have ideas and or businesses. I was looking at TikTok and I was seeing, there were middle schoolers with valuable businesses and products inside a Target. And there are grown people that I know that would love to have that opportunity that haven't made it for themselves yet. And the younger generations are utilizing technology in a way that we just have not been able to leverage at the rate that they've been able to leverage it. And so I think creating that ecosystem, and it's more than classes, it's hands-on opportunities. It's allowing them to see what it's like to build a business or company from the ground up. It's providing resources and support, not just in education, but in finances and resourcing and mentorship that allow them to go through the full life cycle. So we're creating entrepreneurs for the next century.
That's awesome. And so basically, we get a entire cycle of one hand washes the other with community impact and also raising up the next generation, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think it could be very beneficial. I mean, they're on their tablets anyway. They're using tech anyway. I say like these younger children will never know a life without technology, without phones, without tablets. I knew what it was like before we had everything in the palm of my hand. Like I was playing, Oregon Trail and Minesweep in school
Oh, okay.
on a computer.
I thought you were going to say hopscotch, but that worked.
Well, I'm just saying like technology wise, I remember these huge computers. I remember having to have a floppy disk. That was on our school list, a floppy disk.
You had to lock it. You got to lock it.
Yeah, had to lock it, which is like obsolete now, right? Like nobody's using floppy disks. They're using it for like art projects and stuff now.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, even CD-ROMs and burning CDs, like all of these technological advances that are now obsolete.
Shout out to LimeWire.
Yeah. Yes, and FrostWire. Yeah. And any BitTorrent.
Thank you. Was it Sean? Who was the guy who did that? Sean, whatever, from Napster.
Napster.
Yes,
Yep.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, we were coding on MySpace and didn't know that we were coding. We never knew. And now kids are creating their own video games and Roblox games, and they're coding and they're doing all these different things. And so for us to be stuck in what was and not embrace what is not beneficial for our children.
Awesome. So what are you seeing in reference to the differences between different communities? So let's talk about maybe like the Latin community and how they view entrepreneurship versus the Black community and how we view entrepreneurship.
I have really attempted to try and not to compare us.
Okay.
I have tried consistently to get other people to not compare.
Okay, so let's not compare then.
Because I don't think it's about competition. I think it's about completion. Seeing other groups be able to leverage their time, energy, and resources to build their communities is great. But I don't think that there is a comparison, because when I think of the Black community as a whole, when it comes to entrepreneurship, I don't see an America without us. Like America wouldn't be what it was if it weren't for our ideas, our ingenuity, our genes, our hard work. When I think of some of the top brands and top corporations, I think about how we have been at the precipice and inception of that. And this, kind of rang true when we're talking about like Uncle Nearest and talking about Jack Daniels and talking about how we have impacted business in a way in this country that we don't always get the credit for. And so we have perfected entrepreneurship. We have perfected ingenuity. We have created items that have made this entire country and the world a better place to be. But a lot of times we haven't leveraged our mind wealth in a way to produce wealth from our ideas.
I think there's not enough people talking about all the great inventions of people of color, though.
I would agree. I mean, just thinking about, I watched the Henrietta Lacks documentary, thinking that there was something so special within this woman's DNA
Literally.
that for years and years until this day, they are still utilizing her DNA to produce vaccines and making billions and billions of dollars. and her family is not receiving money from that. Like, there have been so many different situations where we have produced ideas that have made the majority wealthy and rich. And I think when we don't have a blueprint ourselves and we've watched our family members be utilized in a way where they are a tool and not a transformative business leader, then it almost creates something in our mind that that's how things are supposed to be. If you don't have a member of your family who has been in business and can show you pitfalls and how to maneuver and operate, then you fumble through it until you get it right. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, because we are a group of people who have the level of grit and determination that we're going to get it out of the mud no matter what. But the beauty in not having to get it out of the mud, the beauty in sharing the resources when someone else has figured it out, is that it allows us to build off one another. And I think that that is very valuable for our community. And so we need to be sharing and sending information back down. And we need to be thinking about what our transition plan is and how many other people we can mentor to be greater than us. I'm big on, like, I need to create my competition. I need to create someone who's going to consistently push me to be better, to think differently, to pivot in ways I've never pivoted before. My daughter is 8 years old, and I know that she's smarter than me. Like, I already know at 8 years old that she's smarter than me. I can tell by how she thinks. I can tell by how she reasons. I know that she's going to be enterprising. So I have to think about, what am I giving her? What can I leave her? What am I teaching her? What am I exposing her to that will allow her to build off of these skills so that she can utilize her mind wealth to build generational wealth?
Awesome. And so, well, just real quick, for anyone who's wondering who Henrietta Lacks is, I encourage you guys to get the book, Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. That's also where we get the Gila cell from, which is based off of her. And she was born in Virginia, of all places. So, very interesting story there.
Absolutely. And just like digging into our history even more in learning about all of the inventions that were patented in other people's names that we designed and developed.
Eddington.
Come on.
Oh, Eddington, excuse me.
There's just so many. I mean, there's so many.
I think about, across the way is a coffee shop, and the fact that a black man invented the counter is important, is like...
The counter.
The counter.
We did that.
Yeah, seriously, all jokes aside. I mean, it's just amazing. But people just don't know enough about what was actually contributed to society or the community.
The beautiful thing about where we are now is that we value ownership in a completely different way. And we are advocating for ownership and to be valued in ways that we haven't before. When looking at content creators that are saying, you're paying me less money, but I'm producing at this level, is a beautiful thing. Sad that we have to do it still, but being able to advocate for ourselves to say, nope, I deserve better than this, or this opportunity isn't equitable to other people who are doing less than me but making more, is important.
Awesome. So just real quick, just a small little small little detour. Going back to the politics part, that's the thing that I loved about the Republican Party, was when I did research, I looked into things like the Wilmington Massacre or different areas within North Carolina, where I'm from, where the primary voting party for the Republican Party were people that looked like me. And they were also individuals they're business owners.
Absolutely.
And I just thought about how they had vibrant communities, which were basically built on the principles of what the Republican Party is. And it just shocks me sometimes. People ask me, like, well, why? I'm like, well, what research have you done? What books have you done outside of, grandma so-and-so does X, Y, and Z, or grandpa so-and-so does X, Y, and Z. So
even in Indiana, this past week, like I said, we had the Indianapolis Black Expo. When you think about the people who started the Black Expo and made it what it is today, the Ron Cummings, prominent Black Republican, Reverend Charles Williams, prominent Black Republican, the Indianapolis Recorder was started by a prominent Black Republican. I think that when it comes to who the party was and what they were founded on, the reason why Black people aligned and subscribed outside of the Emancipation Proclamation was this idea that you could be enterprising, you could be in charge of your own destiny and have agency to make, create, and do whatever it is that you wanted to in this country. And at that time, that was exactly who we were and what we needed. Now, the Republican Party of today, I don't know if it's the party of Lincoln. I subscribe to the party of Lincoln. I'm a Reconstruction Republican. But overall, I think that political personalities and these kind of populist things have kind of torn at the fabric. And so and I tell people this all the time, like there's two ways to get back home, right? And I think for me, I could stand on one side and tell you all the things that you're doing wrong, or I could walk alongside you and show you where these pitfalls are, and hopefully we can work together to get back. And I think about more Black people, which we're seeing, and political data shows is are voting Republican and aligning with the Republican Party and switching to the Republican Party. And I think that that's a beautiful thing because our voices deserve to be heard and our leadership deserves to be seen. And if getting back to basics and the principles, not fighting unnecessary culture wars, and really just focusing on how can we provide opportunity for people to be enterprising, how can we provide better, basis and foundation for businesses to thrive, so that we're producers and not just consumers is important. And if we focused on those things, I think that as a community, as a society, we'd be better. I think right now, because people are disengaged with the political process, drawing people to the polls has to be reactionary. It has to engage or enrage. So we either have to go to the polls because we have hope and we feel like this person is going to transform and change our life, or we hate this person is so terrible that I have to do my duty to keep them away from getting more power. And I would push back on people and understand that the power is you, that what you want to see in your community can happen if you take initiative to want to change it and not waiting around for a politician to do it, but leveraging politicians to make sure that their foot's not on your neck through policies, through ordinances, but that the resources that they're bringing in can help you in doing whatever it is you want to do is really, really important.
That's huge. That's awesome. That's how you can make an impact.
Yeah. I think people feel as though there needs to be some grandiose way of doing things, and I need to have all of this money and I need all of this support. All of these things have to be laid out for me to create or make impact within the community. And for me, listen, if it's volunteering at a school to teach a class 2 hours a week and, telling girls to value themselves and how they value themselves and how they look at themselves and building their self-esteem and letting them know that their condition's not their conclusion, that where they are, what their home life looks like doesn't mean that that's what it has to be. If that's my contribution to society, to impact, to community, then that's what I'm doing. And it doesn't take much but my time, but my energy. And so I think having that idea or sense that like change doesn't have to be seismic for it to change things.
Awesome. The ripple effect.
Right.
What are some parting words you want to leave with our audience today?
Parting words that I want to leave with the audience. Right now, we are in a unique time because we have municipal elections happening in November. The reason why this time is unique is because politicians are vying for your vote to either stay in the position of power that they're in or gain and attain a new position of power. If you are a business owner, if you are a community organization, if you are a corporation, and if you are someone who is looking to advance your priorities, I would suggest sitting down with those that are running for office right now and finding out how or what your desires are and how they align with that person's position, because right now is the time that you should be advocating unlike any other time, because they need you now. They need you to vote for them. They need you to show up on election day. And so what usually happens is they get into office and then you attempt to engage and create and cultivate relationships. No, we need to be cultivating them right now, because if you don't get to know who's on that ballot before November, then you're going to be stuck with whoever gets elected in November to work with. And it's best that you know who's running, what they believe in, and if you can or cannot work with them right now. I would say that each and every one of you out there should find ways to give back to someone that is younger than you. If it's a conversation, if it's taking someone out to lunch, if it's volunteering at a school or an organization or community event, find a way to give back to the youth, because they are desperate, thirsty, and starving for our love, for our attention, and for our guidance.
Awesome. Okay. I think that wraps up impact.
Yay!